In this demo, I'll be showing you how functionality can be automatically implemented for your enumerations and structures by using what is called a derive macro. Thus far in the lessons, if we wanted to print out this enumeration, what we would need to do is match on each possibility. We have manager, supervisor, worker. Then we would print line some information about that variant. There is an easier way, however, to do that automatically. What we can do is derive functionality for printing out information. To do so, we enter a pound sign followed by square braces and then the word derive, then put some parentheses and we type in debug. So derive is a special macro that is applied to enums and structs. It allows you to automatically implement some sort of functionality. In this case, we're implementing debug printing functionality. Now that we have derived that functionality on position, we can delete this entire block of code and then just print out the position directly. We use the debug print token. I'll put me.position for the employee's position. We can run the program and we'll see that position worker will get printed. Now we can see that worker has been printed because we set the position to a worker. We can also use this derive functionality on the employee struct. This will allow us to imprint the entire employee structure. So if we just want to print out all the information about that employee, we can do so by deriving debug on the employee and then just printing out the variable for employee directly. Let's give it a go. Now we can see we have an employee with their information. We have the position, which is a worker, and the work hours, which is 40. One important note when you're deriving functionality this way, all fields within the structure enumeration also have to derive that functionality. So if I was to delete this functionality from position, I will get a compiler error because the debug implementation does not exist anymore on position. Let's see what happens. Here we see that it says the position cannot be formatted using the debug token. And it also gives you some help saying that we can add derive debug onto our enum. So let's add it back. And now if we run the program again, it'll happily print. There are two more derives that are extremely useful for your programs. They are called clone and copy. When you apply the clone and copy derives to a piece of data, such as this enumeration, it informs the compiler that it is allowed to automatically make a copy when you're storing it into a struct or a function. What this means is ownership is no longer transferred when you move the position enumeration into a function or a structure. A copy is made instead. So whenever a move would normally occur where the ownership would change, ownership no longer changes because a copy is made and now you have two copies of the data instead of just one. Just as with the debug derive, if you set clone and copy to this employee structure, and if you didn't set it to the position structure, you would get a compilation error because employee has position within it. In our case, clone and copy is set onto both. I'm going to demonstrate how it automatically copies now. To do so, I'm just going to create a function. I'll just call it print employee. It's going to accept an employee. It won't return anything, and it's just going to do a print line with the employee. Notice that we don't have an ampersand here, so we're not borrowing. This function takes ownership of an employee. Now, if I call this function and I put the me variable in there and call it twice, what will happen is this me variable, it won't change ownership when print employee is called. Instead, a new copy will be made and placed here. So this will be a copy. And this original one still exists. And then when print employee is called again, we get a second copy. So that'll be another copy. And then print employee will again run properly. Let's run it really quick so we can see it working. And as we can see, we have it print twice because there was 2 copies created. If we were to remove this clone and copy derive from the employee struct, then we'll get a compiler error because ownership will change from the main function to the print employee function when we first call with the me variable. As we can see, the value was moved into print employee the first time. We tried to use it again with the same value, but it's already been moved into this function because ownership has changed. One last note, if you're automatically deriving clone and copy, is to only apply that to structures which are small in size. So usually you would only have maybe 4 or 5 entries in your struct. If you start to have a lot of data in your struct, you don't want to automatically derive those because then you'll make expensive copies throughout your program and you won't realize it because it happens automatically. This concludes the demo on deriving functionality. I'll see you in the next presentation.